My name is Sarah Williams, and at 34, I thought my pregnancy was the miracle that would finally bring peace to our family. But what my sister-in-law whispered to my mother-in-law at our baby announcement would lead me to a hidden box of forged documents that destroyed everything I believed about the people I loved. You see, while I was picking out paint colors for the nursery and reading What to Expect When You're Expecting, Karen was forging my husband's signature on insurance claims worth nearly $1 million. She thought she was protecting her criminal husband, but what she didn't know was that I'd been a forensic document examiner before I became a physical therapist, a skill that would send her to federal prison. The night everything unraveled was supposed to be Michael's moment of triumph at his company's awards dinner. Instead, it became the night I stood up in front of 200 people and exposed a conspiracy that reached the FBI. If you've ever had that gut feeling something was wrong with a family member, stick around and hit subscribe, because this story will show you why trusting your instincts can save your entire future. Here in Charlotte, North Carolina, where sweet tea flows and family loyalty runs deeper than the Catawba River, trust isn't something you question, it's something you're raised with. Growing up, Mama always taught me that blood is thicker than water, and Daddy would say that family sticks together no matter what storms come. Those lessons shaped everything about how I approached my marriage and the relationships that came with it. For 8 years, my practice as a licensed physical therapist has been built on helping people heal from workplace injuries, teaching construction workers to trust their bodies again after accidents, helping office workers recover from repetitive stress injuries. There's something deeply satisfying about watching someone regain their strength, their confidence, their ability to provide for their family. Michael works as a senior insurance adjuster for Atlantic Insurance Group, one of the most respected firms in the Southeast. His job requires an almost detective-like ability to separate truth from fiction, to spot the details that don't add up in damage claims. That analytical mind, combined with his genuine compassion for people going through difficult times, made him exceptional at his work. Atlantic's success rate in fraud detection improved dramatically after Michael joined their team. Karen Williams Foster entered our family 5 years ago, like a summer storm, beautiful, dramatic, and leaving everything slightly unsettled in her wake. 2 years younger than Michael, she possessed that effortless Southern charm that could make strangers feel like lifelong friends within minutes. Her wedding to Scott Foster had been the kind of celebration that gets featured in local magazines, all magnolias and mason jars, with a reception that cost more than most people's cars. Scott ran Foster Construction, a mid-sized operation specializing in commercial roofing and general contracting throughout the Charlotte metro area. Tall and broad-shouldered with calloused hands that spoke of real work, he seemed like the perfect match for Karen's polished ambition. Together, they projected the image of young success, the kind of couple that made other people wonder what their secret was. But behind their Instagram-perfect facade, cracks had been forming for years. Karen's desperate desire for motherhood had consumed their savings through multiple rounds of fertility treatments. Each failed cycle brought not just heartbreak, but mounting medical bills that stretched their finances to the breaking point. Scott's business, meanwhile, faced increasing pressure from larger contractors who could underbid him on major projects. Family dinners at Michael's parents' house became exercises in careful navigation. Karen would arrive with stories about expensive vacations that seemed at odds with their supposed financial struggles, while Scott grew increasingly quiet as conversations turned to future plans. The tension between maintaining appearances and facing reality created an undercurrent that everyone felt but no one acknowledged. Michael, being the protective older brother, tried to mediate whenever Karen's sharp comments cut too deep. He'd explain after particularly tense evenings. His loyalty to his sister was absolute, rooted in childhood memories of defending her against playground bullies and teenage heartbreaks. That same protective instinct would later blind him to the truth. Mother Williams, bless her heart, treated Karen like the daughter she'd never had, which sometimes left me feeling like the outsider looking in. Sunday dinners would find Karen helping in the kitchen while regaling everyone with stories, her laughter echoing through the house as she charmed Michael's father with questions about his woodworking projects. The woman could light up a room when she wanted to, which made her darker moments all the more unsettling. What none of us realized was how Karen's charm masked a growing desperation that would soon turn our family upside down. The Williams family gatherings followed a predictable rhythm that had been established long before my arrival. Every other Sunday, we'd congregate at the sprawling ranch house where Michael had grown up, with its wraparound porch and kitchen that smelled perpetually of cornbread and coffee. Father Williams would hold court from his recliner, sharing stories from his 40 years at the phone company, while Mother Williams orchestrated the meal with the precision of a symphony conductor. These dinners revealed the intricate dance of family dynamics that most outsiders never see. Karen had perfected the art of steering conversations toward topics that highlighted her sophistication: art galleries she'd visited, restaurants she'd discovered, weekend trips to Asheville or Savannah. Her stories always painted a picture of abundance that seemed disconnected from the financial struggles Scott occasionally let slip. The construction industry in Charlotte was brutal, with established companies like Rogers & Sons and Carolina Commercial dominating the lucrative contracts. Scott's smaller operation survived on residential projects and the occasional commercial job, but the profit margins grew thinner each year. During one particularly honest moment over beer on the back porch, he'd confided that 3 major contracts had fallen through in 6 months, leaving him scrambling to cover payroll and equipment costs. Karen's reaction to these setbacks was to double down on appearances. Designer handbags appeared despite budget constraints. Spa days became more frequent, not less. When questioned about expenses during family conversations, she'd deflect with humor or change the subject entirely. The disconnect between her spending and their circumstances became increasingly obvious to everyone, except, perhaps, Michael. Father Williams, ever the practical man, began asking pointed questions about Scott's business prospects during our visits. His concern came from genuine care, but it put additional pressure on a couple already struggling beneath the weight of unmet expectations. These conversations often ended with awkward silences that Mother Williams would fill by bringing out dessert or suggesting we move to the living room. Michael's loyalty to his sister meant he rarely questioned her explanations, even when they didn't quite add up. The brother who could spot inconsistencies in insurance claims worth hundreds of thousands of dollars somehow missed the red flags in his own family's behavior. Looking back, this selective blindness makes perfect sense. We protect the people we love from our own suspicions, even when those suspicions might save us all from devastation. What felt like ordinary family tension was actually the foundation cracking beneath our feet. The 4th of July barbecue at the Williams house was always a production worthy of Southern Living magazine. Red, white, and blue bunting draped the porch railings, while mason jars filled with wildflowers adorned every surface. The smell of Father Williams' famous dry-rubbed ribs mingled with the sweet aroma of Mother Williams' peach cobbler cooling on the kitchen windowsill. Extended family had gathered from across the Carolinas: cousins, aunts, uncles, and family friends who'd been honorary relatives for decades. Children ran through the sprinkler while adults clustered in the shade of ancient oak trees, sweet tea glasses sweating in the humid summer air. The atmosphere was perfect for sharing joyful news, which made what happened next all the more shocking. Michael waited until after the meal, when everyone had settled into lawn chairs with full bellies and relaxed smiles. Standing beside the picnic table where Mother Williams displayed her famous potato salad, he cleared his throat and reached for my hand. The gesture alone was enough to quiet the conversations and turn all attention toward us. Sarah and I have something wonderful to share with y'all, he announced, his voice carrying that particular warmth that comes with long-awaited dreams finally coming true. We're expecting our first baby. The explosion of joy was immediate and overwhelming. Mother Williams let out a delighted shriek that could have been heard 3 counties over, while Father Williams abandoned his usual reserve to wrap both of us in a bear hug that lifted my feet off the ground. Cousins cheered, aunts began planning baby showers before we'd even sat back down, and Uncle Robert started telling stories about Michael as a baby that made everyone laugh until their sides ached. But in the midst of all that celebration, Karen's reaction cut through the happiness like a blade. The color drained from her face so completely that she looked almost ghostly in the dappled sunlight. Her smile, when it finally appeared, seemed carved from stone rather than born from joy. Scott's immediate congratulations covered the moment, his booming voice and enthusiastic handshake masking his wife's distress, but the damage was already visible to anyone paying attention. "How wonderful for you both," Karen finally managed, her voice carrying an edge that made my skin prickle despite the summer heat. Something in her tone suggested this wasn't wonderful at all. It was a declaration of war, though none of us understood that yet. The weeks following our announcement brought a shift in Karen's behavior that was both subtle and unmistakable. Phone calls to Michael's office, which had been rare occurrences reserved for family emergencies, suddenly became weekly events. She'd call during his lunch break with seemingly innocent questions about cases she'd heard mentioned on the local news. "That warehouse fire on Independence Boulevard was all over Channel 9 last night," she'd say, her voice carrying a casual interest that hadn't existed before. "Wasn't that one of your investigations? How do you even begin to figure out if something like that is legitimate or if someone's trying to pull a fast one?" Michael, touched by his sister's newfound interest in his professional life, would patiently explain the intricacies of fire investigation, the telltale signs of arson, and the documentation required for major commercial claims. What he interpreted as sisterly curiosity was actually something far more calculating, though neither of us recognized it at the time. The pregnancy symptoms hit me harder than expected during those early weeks. Morning sickness that lasted well into the afternoon left me exhausted and emotionally fragile. Simple tasks like grocery shopping became monumental challenges, and the smell of certain foods would send me rushing to the bathroom with no warning. During one particularly rough patch, Karen surprised everyone by offering to help with household tasks and errands. "You need to rest and take care of that precious baby," she'd insist, showing up unannounced with cleaning supplies or offering to run to the pharmacy for prenatal vitamins. Her sudden attentiveness felt like a blessing during those difficult days, though something about her eagerness made me vaguely uncomfortable in ways I couldn't articulate. The transformation became even more pronounced when Michael received the call that would change everything. Atlantic Insurance Group had selected him as their Adjuster of the Year, an honor that came with a $10,000 bonus, a promotion to Senior Investigator, and recognition at the company's annual awards dinner. The ceremony would be held at the prestigious Omni Hotel downtown, with spouses and immediate family invited to celebrate. Karen's reaction to this news was startling in its intensity. Rather than offering simple congratulations, she immediately began planning what she called a proper celebration for our family. Her enthusiasm bordered on manic as she insisted on coordinating every detail, from arranging family transportation to ensuring everyone knew the dress code and dinner schedule. "This is such a momentous occasion for the Williams family," she declared during a phone call that lasted nearly an hour. "Michael's success reflects on all of us, and we need to make sure everything is absolutely perfect. Don't worry about any of the planning, Sarah. Just focus on feeling beautiful and supporting your husband. Leave all the coordination to me." The offer should have been a relief given my ongoing battle with pregnancy fatigue, but something in her tone set off alarm bells. The way she emphasized perfect and her insistence on handling every detail felt less like helpful family support and more like someone positioning themselves for control over an important event. None of us realized that Karen was already setting the stage for what she hoped would be Michael's complete professional destruction. 3 weeks before the awards dinner, morning sickness hit me with a vengeance that left me bedridden for most of the day. Michael had left for work early to handle a complex claim investigation, and the house felt eerily quiet, except for the occasional wave of nausea that sent me stumbling to the bathroom. Around noon, Karen arrived unannounced with homemade chicken soup and an offer to tidy up while I rested. "You look absolutely peaked, honey," she said, settling into our living room with the familiarity of someone who belonged there. "Why don't you go lie down while I handle some of these dishes? I brought enough soup to last you through the weekend." Her kindness felt genuine, though something about the way her eyes swept our home office made me slightly uncomfortable. While sipping her soup and trying to keep it down, we chatted about the upcoming awards dinner and the guest list Michael's company had provided. The conversation took an unexpected turn when Karen mentioned specific details about Atlantic Insurance's biggest clients. "I saw in the Charlotte Observer that they handled that major warehouse claim last year," she said casually, stirring her own soup. "Something about Foster Construction and a roof collapse? Wasn't that one of Michael's cases?" The name hit me like ice water. Foster Construction? That's Scott's company. Karen's spoon froze halfway to her mouth, and for just a moment, her carefully composed expression cracked. "Oh, did I say Foster? I meant another construction company. There are so many in Charlotte. You know how these things blur together." But the damage was already done. The specific mention of a roof collapse claim, combined with her obvious discomfort when I connected it to Scott's business, created a knot of suspicion in my stomach that had nothing to do with pregnancy. After she left, claiming she needed to pick up dry cleaning, an overwhelming urge to investigate consumed me. Michael kept copies of his most significant cases in a locked filing cabinet in our home office, a security measure required by Atlantic Insurance for sensitive claims. The key lived in his desk drawer, something he'd shown me years ago in case of emergency. With trembling hands, I unlocked the cabinet and began searching for anything related to Foster Construction. The file was thicker than expected, containing documentation for not just one claim, but 3 separate incidents over the past 18 months. A roof collapse at a warehouse project, $485,000 payout. A crane accident that injured 2 workers, $320,000 payout. Equipment theft from a construction site, $150,000 payout. Nearly $1 million in total claims, all approved with Michael's signature. Except the signatures looked wrong. Studying them carefully, comparing them to Michael's writing on birthday cards and grocery lists throughout our house, the differences became unmistakable. The slant was off, the way he dotted his I's was different, and his characteristic loop on the letter M was missing entirely. Someone had been forging my husband's signature, and the most likely suspect was the woman who'd just been sitting in my living room, offering comfort while gathering intelligence about our lives. Sleep became impossible that night as the implications of what I'd discovered churned through my mind like a relentless storm. By dawn, one fact had crystallized with terrifying clarity. I needed professional confirmation before making accusations that could destroy multiple lives. The small detail I hadn't shared with anyone, not even Michael, was that before pursuing physical therapy, I'd spent 2 years studying forensic document examination at UNC Charlotte. The program had been part of my original plan to work in law enforcement, analyzing questioned documents for criminal investigations. Life had taken me in a different direction, but the training in signature analysis, ink composition, and handwriting authentication remained sharp in my memory. What I'd observed in those insurance files exhibited every hallmark of skilled forgery, consistent enough to fool casual inspection, but betraying subtle tells that professional scrutiny would expose. Dr. Patricia Chen operated a private forensic laboratory in downtown Charlotte, specializing in document authentication for legal proceedings. Her reputation in the field was impeccable, with testimony accepted in federal courts across 3 states. When I called her office that morning, claiming to need urgent consultation on suspected signature forgery, her assistant scheduled an emergency appointment for that afternoon. The laboratory occupied the entire 3rd floor of a converted warehouse, filled with specialized equipment that looked more like a science fiction movie set than anything I'd expected. High-powered microscopes, ultraviolet light sources, and computer analysis systems lined the walls, while Dr. Chen examined the photocopied signatures I'd brought with me. "These are definitely fraudulent," she confirmed after 20 minutes of meticulous analysis. "The forger is skilled. They've studied the authentic signature patterns carefully, but there are several definitive indicators. The pressure variations are wrong. The natural flow interruptions that occur in genuine signatures are missing. And under magnification, you can see where the forger lifted the pen to check their work." Her analysis included digital enhancement that revealed hesitation marks invisible to the naked eye, places where the forger had paused to ensure accuracy. The scientific confirmation of my suspicions felt simultaneously validating and devastating. Someone close to our family had committed federal crimes using Michael's identity, and the most likely suspect was his own sister. Dr. Chen's recommendation led me to Jim Rodriguez, a former FBI agent who now worked as a private investigator specializing in insurance fraud. His office in South End was modest but professional, with certificates and commendations covering one wall like a testament to his credibility. When I explained the situation, his expression grew increasingly grave. "Insurance fraud involving forged adjuster signatures is a federal crime," he explained, his voice carrying the weight of someone who'd prosecuted similar cases. "We're talking about conspiracy, mail fraud, wire fraud, and potentially RICO violations if this is part of a larger pattern. The penalties can include decades in federal prison." Rodriguez agreed to begin a discreet investigation, starting with surveillance of Scott's construction sites and a deeper examination of the claimed incidents. His fee was substantial, but the alternative, allowing federal crimes to continue while my husband unknowingly took responsibility, was unthinkable. The trap was beginning to close, though Karen had no idea her carefully constructed scheme was unraveling. Rodriguez's surveillance operation began immediately, with his team monitoring Foster Construction's job sites throughout Charlotte using equipment that could capture activity from several blocks away. Within 48 hours, the footage revealed patterns that made my blood run cold. Workers would arrive at sites where accidents had allegedly occurred, but instead of genuine construction work, they spent their time arranging debris in specific configurations and photographing damage from multiple angles. The warehouse where the supposed roof collapse had happened showed no signs of structural failure when examined with telephoto lenses. Instead, Rodriguez captured video of Scott directing workers to stack damaged materials in precise patterns, while Karen photographing the scene with a professional camera. The entire operation had the choreographed precision of a movie set, complete with multiple takes to ensure the documentation looked authentic. Most damning was the discovery at the crane accident site. Rodriguez's team witnessed Scott and 2 employees staging what appeared to be a workplace injury, with one man lying beneath the equipment while Karen again documented everything. The injured worker then walked normally to his truck and drove away, apparently unharmed despite the $320,000 claim filed on his behalf. The sophistication of their fraud operation suggested this had been planned for months, possibly years. A breakthrough came when Rodriguez gained access to Karen's medical records through legal channels. Hidden beneath routine appointments and fertility treatments was a prenatal care file dating back 2 months. She was pregnant and had been since before our announcement. The timing meant she'd known about her own pregnancy when we shared our news at the 4th of July barbecue, yet she'd never told the family. Her bitter reaction suddenly made terrifying sense. Phone records obtained through court order revealed the true scope of the conspiracy. Karen had been in contact with at least 6 other construction companies throughout the Carolinas, sharing information about successful fraud techniques and insurance adjuster vulnerabilities. Text messages between her and Scott detailed plans to destroy Michael's credibility at the awards dinner by publicly exposing the fraudulent claims, then disappearing before investigators could trace the forgeries back to them. The most chilling discovery came from encrypted emails recovered from Karen's laptop. She'd been researching ways to frame me for the forgeries, including detailed plans to plant evidence in our home office and testimony that would suggest I'd been forging Michael's signature to help my secret boyfriend in the construction industry. The fictional narrative she'd constructed painted me as a desperate woman whose pregnancy had been the result of an affair, leading to blackmail and fraud. Rodriguez's investigation revealed financial records showing Scott's company was nearly bankrupt, with over $400,000 in unpaid debts to suppliers and subcontractors. The insurance payouts had been their only source of income for the past year, funding not just their business operations, but their personal expenses and Karen's fertility treatments. They'd built their entire lifestyle on stolen money while planning to destroy Michael's career to cover their crimes. The evidence was overwhelming, but we needed to catch them in the act to ensure federal prosecutors would pursue maximum charges. Rodriguez's connections within federal law enforcement proved invaluable when he approached the FBI's Charlotte Financial Crimes Unit with our evidence. Special Agent Lisa Park, a sharp-eyed woman with 15 years of experience prosecuting white-collar crime, revealed our documentation with the methodical precision of someone who'd seen every conceivable fraud scheme. This level of systematic forgery, combined with staged accidents, constitutes a federal conspiracy, Agent Park explained during our clandestine meeting at a coffee shop in Matthews. We're looking at mail fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and potentially RICO violations if they're part of a larger network. The penalties start at 20 years in federal prison. The FBI's involvement transformed our amateur investigation into a professional operation with resources beyond anything Rodriguez could provide alone. Surveillance teams with advanced equipment began monitoring Karen and Scott's movements 24 hours a day. Phone taps, authorized through federal warrants, captured conversations that revealed the final phase of their plan to destroy Michael's reputation at the awards dinner. Agent Park played a recording that made my hands shake with rage. Karen's voice, crystal clear through the federal surveillance equipment, discussed planting additional forged documents in Michael's briefcase and having Scott discover them during a supposedly innocent conversation at the dinner. Their plan included a prepared speech about Michael's incompetence that would humiliate him in front of his colleagues and supervisors. The beauty of this timing, Karen's recorded voice continued, is that everyone will be so focused on Michael's supposed fraud that nobody will think to investigate us. Plus, with Sarah's pregnancy making her emotional and unreliable, who's going to believe her if she tries to defend him? Federal prosecutors were already preparing charges based on the evidence we'd gathered, but Agent Park recommended allowing Karen and Scott to proceed with their dinner plan. Arresting them in the act of attempting to frame Michael would provide the strongest possible case and prevent any claims of entrapment or prosecutorial overreach. The technical aspects of the operation required specialized equipment that only federal agencies could provide. Micro-recording devices would be placed on my person and hidden throughout the venue, while undercover agents posing as hotel staff would position themselves strategically around the ballroom. Every word of Karen's planned revelation would be captured with courtroom-quality audio. Agent Park's team also coordinated with Atlantic Insurance Group's internal security department, ensuring that company executives would be prepared for what was about to unfold. Michael's supervisor, unaware of the specific details but briefed on the general situation, agreed to let events proceed naturally rather than warning Michael in advance. The most difficult aspect of the entire operation was maintaining normal behavior around Karen while knowing exactly what she planned to do. When she called to confirm final details about the dinner, chatting excitedly about how proud she was of Michael's achievement, the deception felt like swallowing poison. But federal agents assured me that her arrest would be swift and decisive once she began her planned attack. Everything was in place for what would become one of the most dramatic nights in Charlotte's business community history. The Omni Hotel's grand ballroom had been transformed into an elegant celebration worthy of Atlantic Insurance's most prestigious annual event. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in navy and gold linens, while centerpieces of white roses and eucalyptus added touches of southern sophistication. The venue buzzed with Charlotte's insurance industry elite, executives and their spouses mingling over cocktails before the formal program began. Getting dressed that evening felt like preparing for battle rather than celebration. The micro-recording device Agent Park had provided was virtually invisible once secured beneath my dress, but knowing it was there made every movement feel calculated and strange. Michael adjusted his bow tie in our bedroom mirror, radiating genuine excitement about the recognition he'd earned through years of dedicated work. "You look absolutely stunning," he said, kissing my forehead gently. "Thank you for being patient with all the pregnancy symptoms while I've been so focused on work. Tonight feels like the beginning of something wonderful for our family." His innocent joy made my chest tighten with emotion. Here was a man who'd built his career on integrity and hard work, completely unaware that his own sister planned to destroy everything he'd accomplished. The weight of protecting him while ensuring justice felt almost unbearable. Karen arrived at our house precisely on schedule, looking radiant in a black cocktail dress that emphasized her still-hidden pregnancy. Her makeup was flawless, her smile bright and seemingly genuine as she embraced both Michael and me with apparent warmth. Scott followed close behind, unusually quiet, but impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that must have cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Are you ready for your big night, brother?" Karen asked, adjusting Michael's pocket square with sisterly affection that would have seemed touching if I hadn't known her true intentions. "Atlantic Insurance is so lucky to have someone with your integrity and attention to detail. Tonight, everyone will finally see what the Williams family has always known about you." The drive to the hotel was filled with Karen's animated chatter about the evening's program and her excitement about Michael's recognition. She'd memorized details about the other honorees and seemed genuinely knowledgeable about Atlantic Insurance's recent successes. Her performance was so convincing that I found myself wondering if Agent Park's surveillance could possibly be wrong, if we'd somehow misinterpreted an innocent woman's actions. But as we walked into the hotel lobby, Karen's hand briefly touched the envelope in her purse, the envelope I knew contained forged documents meant to destroy my husband's life. The small gesture reminded me that some betrayals come wrapped in smiles and family loyalty. The formal program proceeded flawlessly through dinner and the first two award presentations, with Michael's recognition scheduled as the evening's finale. Karen had positioned herself at our table with strategic precision, close enough to the microphone setup to ensure her voice would carry throughout the ballroom when she made her planned revelation. Her fingers drummed nervously against her wine glass, the only outward sign of the storm brewing beneath her composed exterior. When Atlantic Insurance's CEO called Michael to the podium, the applause was thunderous and genuine. His colleagues respected him, his supervisors trusted him, and the recognition he was receiving represented years of honest, meticulous work. Standing at the lectern with the company's highest honor in his hands, Michael looked like a man whose dreams were finally coming true. That's when Karen struck with the precision of a practiced performer. Rising gracefully from her seat, she moved toward the front of the ballroom with apparent reluctance, as if struggling with a difficult decision. Her voice, when she spoke, carried just the right mixture of family loyalty and professional obligation. "I'm so sorry to interrupt this wonderful evening," she began, her words reaching every corner of the silent ballroom through the room's excellent acoustics. "But as Michael's sister, I can't in good conscience let this celebration continue without addressing some serious concerns about the cases that earned him this recognition." The collective intake of breath from 200 guests created a moment of perfect silence before Karen continued her carefully rehearsed performance. From her purse, she withdrew the envelope containing forged documents, holding them up for everyone to see. "These are copies of insurance claims that Michael approved for Foster Construction, my husband's company," she announced, her voice breaking with manufactured emotion. "Nearly $1 million in fraudulent payouts that Michael either failed to properly investigate or deliberately overlooked. I can't let my brother's career be built on corruption, even if it means destroying my own marriage." Michael's face went ashen as he gripped the podium for support. The room erupted in whispers and shocked murmurs, while Scott played his part perfectly, rising from his seat with apparent outrage at his wife's betrayal of their family secret. But Karen had made one critical miscalculation in her elaborate performance. She'd assumed that her revelation would catch everyone by surprise, that no one would be prepared for her accusations. She had no idea that federal agents throughout the ballroom were already moving into position, or that every word she'd spoken was being recorded as evidence of conspiracy and attempted fraud. The trap was finally springing shut. The moment Karen finished her accusations, I rose from my seat with a calm that surprised even me. Every eye in the ballroom turned toward the pregnant woman who was about to shatter the evening's second dramatic revelation. Agent Park's signal from across the room confirmed that federal surveillance had captured everything they needed for prosecution. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands, "what you've just witnessed is the final act of an elaborate fraud conspiracy that has been under federal investigation for the past month." The silence that followed was so complete that you could have heard a pin drop on the marble floor. From my purse, I withdrew the authenticated forensic analysis that Dr. Chen had prepared, along with photographs of the staged accident sites that Rodriguez's team had documented. "Karen Williams Foster has been forging my husband's signature on fraudulent insurance claims while her husband staged fake accidents at construction sites. The documents she just presented as evidence are themselves forgeries, created as part of a plan to frame Michael for crimes they committed." Agent Park appeared at Karen's side with the swift efficiency of someone who'd executed countless arrests. "Karen Williams Foster, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, mail fraud, wire fraud, and attempted obstruction of justice. The Miranda rights echoed through the ballroom's crystal-clear acoustics, while Scott found himself simultaneously surrounded by additional agents. The revelation of Karen's hidden pregnancy added another layer of tragedy to the unfolding drama. Federal prosecutors later confirmed that pregnancy wouldn't protect her from prosecution, though it would likely influence sentencing considerations. Her attempts to use our family announcement as cover for her criminal activities demonstrated a level of calculated deception that shocked even experienced federal investigators. Within hours of their arrest, both Karen and Scott began providing testimony in exchange for reduced sentences, revealing the full scope of their fraud network that extended across 3 states. Their cooperation led to additional arrests of co-conspirators and the recovery of over $2.3 million in fraudulent insurance payouts that had been distributed among various shell companies. The legal proceedings moved with surprising speed through federal court. Karen ultimately received a sentence of 8 years in federal prison, while Scott received 12 years due to his leadership role in organizing the conspiracy. Their unborn child would be placed with Scott's parents, as Karen's criminal conviction made her an unfit guardian under federal guidelines. Michael's reputation was not only cleared but enhanced by the investigation's outcome. Atlantic Insurance promoted him to regional fraud director, recognizing his unwitting role in exposing one of the most sophisticated insurance fraud operations in North Carolina's history. The weeks following Karen's arrest were perhaps the most difficult of our marriage, not because of external pressures, but because of the internal reckoning that had to happen. Michael struggled with a profound sense of guilt that no amount of logic could dispel. The brother who defended Karen throughout their childhood, who'd made excuses for her behavior and trusted her implicitly, now had to reconcile that love with the devastating reality of her crimes. "How did I miss it?" he asked repeatedly during those sleepless nights when pregnancy insomnia kept me awake anyway. I'm trained to spot deception, to see through elaborate fraud schemes, and my own sister was using my signature to steal millions of dollars. What does that say about my judgment? Dr. Amanda Foster, the family therapist we began seeing together, helped us understand that professional skills don't automatically transfer to personal relationships. The very love that made Michael want to protect his sister had created blind spots that Karen had deliberately exploited. Healing meant learning to forgive himself while still holding Karen accountable for her choices. Mother and Father Williams struggled with their own complex emotions throughout the legal proceedings. The daughter-in-law they'd embraced so warmly had been systematically destroying their son's career while planning to frame me for her crimes. Their Sunday dinners became quieter affairs, conversations carefully avoiding topics that might lead back to Karen's betrayal, though their support for Michael and me never wavered. "We raised our children to protect each other," Father Williams confided during one particularly emotional family gathering. But somewhere along the way, Karen twisted that love into something selfish and destructive. "Your mama and I failed to see what she was becoming, and we're sorry for that." The pregnancy progressed beautifully despite the stress of the federal investigation and trial preparations. Our daughter's kicks became stronger and more frequent, as if she was reminding us that life continues to grow even in the midst of chaos. Doctor appointments brought joy and anticipation, replacing the anxiety that had dominated those early months when everything felt uncertain. Most surprisingly, the crisis deepened our marriage in ways I hadn't expected. Michael's vulnerability during the healing process, combined with my own strength in protecting our family, created a new dynamic based on mutual respect rather than traditional roles. We learned to communicate about difficult truths without trying to protect each other from reality. Christmas that year was celebrated with just the 4 of us: Michael, me, and his parents, but it felt more genuine than any previous holiday gathering. The absence of performed happiness and competitive conversations allowed space for authentic gratitude and hope for our growing family's future. The response from other women who heard our story was overwhelming and humbling. Letters, emails, and phone calls poured in from across the country, sharing similar experiences of family betrayal and financial manipulation. Many described that same gut feeling that something was wrong, but they dismissed their instincts in favor of keeping family peace. Their stories reinforced how common these situations truly are. Dr. Chen's forensic analysis taught me warning signs that every woman should know about signature forgery. Authentic signatures have natural variations in pressure and flow that are nearly impossible to replicate perfectly. Forged signatures often show hesitation marks, unnatural pen lifts, and slightly different letter formations when compared to known samples. If you ever suspect someone is forging documents in your name, photographing multiple examples and consulting a forensic expert can provide definitive proof. Agent Park emphasized that financial fraud within families is vastly underreported because victims hesitate to prosecute people they love. However, federal prosecutors take these crimes seriously regardless of family relationships. Insurance fraud costs every American family approximately $400 to $700 annually in higher premiums, making it a crime that affects entire communities. The FBI's financial crimes units in every major city have resources specifically designed to help fraud victims navigate both the legal system and the emotional complexities of prosecuting family members. The insurance industry has implemented new safeguards, partly based on what happened in our case. Atlantic Insurance now requires dual authorization for claims over $250,000 and uses advanced signature verification software that can detect subtle forgeries that might fool human reviewers. These changes protect both insurance companies and honest adjusters like Michael from becoming unwitting accomplices to fraud schemes. Perhaps most importantly, this experience taught me that trusting your instincts isn't selfish, it's survival. When family members suddenly show unusual interest in your professional life, ask specific questions about your financial situation, or volunteer to help in ways that give them access to sensitive information, those behaviors deserve closer examination. Love doesn't require ignoring red flags, and protecting yourself protects everyone you care about. For women facing similar situations, resources exist to help you navigate these difficult waters. The National Fraud Information Center provides guidance for reporting financial crimes, while organizations like the Financial Planning Association offer support for victims of family financial abuse. If this story resonated with you, please share it with other women who might need to hear that they're not alone in facing family betrayal. Subscribe for more stories about finding strength in impossible situations. And remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust yourself enough to ask difficult questions. Your instincts are valid, your voice matters, and you deserve a family that builds you up rather than tearing you down.